Hello, thanks for being interested in the question. When I ask the question, I mean, why did God create humans when He knew by His foreknowledge every tragedy that was going to come into our lives? This is another hard question, and like you, I'm just another pilgrim trying to find answers. Well, I think the central reason might be that God would not allow the sin of man to deprive Him and future saved humans from having an eternal relationship in heaven with Him. And we'll get into the finer points of that. The question is different than the question, why do bad things happen to good people, which I'll take a look at in my next video. So God knew that all generations would carry the love of sin in their hearts. He knew the name of every evil man before he was born. He knew because of unrepentant sin that many of us were headed for eternal damnation, but He also saw the millions who would travel the narrow road to heaven. Fully understanding the magnitude of God's holiness and sovereignty is not possible for us humans. But if we don't try to grasp the perfection and essence of His holy nature and attributes a little bit, it will be difficult to answer some of these questions. The Bible says that we were created in God's image, so we share some of His attributes. We share the desire and the ability to love and have relationships, and we have the desire and the ability to be creative. If we didn't have these things in common with God, there would be no procreation. Mankind would eventually become non-existent. We are creative beings. And when a married man and woman become one and create another human life, just like God, they do so with the full knowledge of the broken, dangerous, and sinful world they are sending their child into. But we go on. It would appear that God had at least three choices when creating man. He could have created a pre-programmed, sin-free, glitch-free, no free will human being, which would produce a meaningless relationship. It's easy to see that type of cold relationship would never work for God. Or He could have passed and not created any humans at all, ever, and just be content with the love and fellowship of His angels. Problem solved. But again, because of God's creative nature and a desire for more loving relationships, this choice was not the answer. Another way would be to create humans with a free will, with a life and a soul, capable of every human emotion, with the ability to do both wonderfully good or exceedingly evil things. We've all witnessed the curses and blessings of humans who have this choice, because they are us. So I think I'll just answer the why did God do that to us question with some more questions. Would it be fair to future saved and heaven-bound humans to be deprived of heaven and a relationship with God and each other because of what future sin would wrought? Is that a just outcome? What about the enemies of God, both the fallen angels and the human workers of iniquity with their demonic influences? Should they have been allowed to be effective in persuading God from having human relationships in heaven just because God had complete foreknowledge of what sin would bring? Should God's enemies have been allowed to be victorious in influencing God about what He will or will not decide regarding man's creation? And finally, yes, free will made it possible for us to sin. But isn't it clear that God had to create man with a free will for man to be capable of choosing love? So we see that God would not allow Satan to prevent loving relationships. And as for sin, God had no part in it. We did that to ourselves. The wounds that we suffer due to sin are self-inflicted, and the final destination of our souls is self-directed. But there is great good news. God has provided the way for us to be restored to Him by accepting His Son Jesus, who willingly went to the cross on our behalf as full payment for our sin. Thank God for the gift of free will. It gives us a choice in the well-being of our souls. Thanks for coming in, and God bless you. The familiar verse John 3:16 is very telling of a broken relationship with God and just how far God was willing to go to restore his relationship with us. And Isaiah 43:7 declares that we humans were made for his glory.